Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mormonish. I'm Rebecca, and you might recognize my sometimes frequent co-host, Unoriginal Jim. That's
How are you
right.
doing
When
tonight?
Landon can't join us, Jim always fills in, and he is fantastic. You guys probably don't know, but when we start taping a podcast, we usually talk for like 40 minutes just about stuff. And then we're like, oh, yeah, we're supposed to turn on the
We
podcast.
have something to do.
We have something to do. And this is what happened with our guest today. We would like to welcome Suspicious Might to the program. Welcome, Suspicious.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and as you guys know, you've watched Mormonish enough. Sometimes we have guests that, for various reasons, just can't be on camera, and that's totally okay. And we appreciate them, taking the big step to come on, especially when they have really super interesting information like Suspicious Might does. And this is something you guys might have seen this. A lot of podcasts come because I'll come across a post somewhere, and I'm like, I wonder if this person would be willing to expand on this, and I'll reach out. And Unoriginal Jim, the same thing. He came across this same
That's how
post.
we met. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it piqued our interest. And I think when we get started, a lot of you will go, oh, yeah, I saw that. So I contacted Suspicious and I said, hey, would you consider coming on? And we kind of talked about parameters of confidentiality, and here we are, and we're super excited about this topic. Why don't you just introduce yourself a little bit as briefly as you want, Suspicious Might, and then we will dive right in. As you can kind of see, our slides are up. We are going to be talking about data and the church and everything involved in that, and this is
Not
a
just that.
big hot button topic.
We're going to be talking about your data.
That's right.
And
Don't
the
get
Your
scared
data.
now. All right. So give us a little brief intro, Suspicious, and then we'll just take off. This is going to be fascinating.
Sounds good. So, Suspicious Might's my Reddit name. I've been out of the church for about a year, and I got into researching different elements about the church because one thing that I think is difficult in the ex-Mormon community is we hear a lot of people repeat, oh, the church has $250 billion. The church has X amount of money. The church is the most wealthy church besides the Catholic Church. And it kind of is a talking point that I think falls deaf on a lot of people's ears. They're used to hearing that, especially in the TBM community, especially in like close to the church communities, or for people who are outside the church, they don't know and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So I set out to try to find numbers to attach to a lot of these claims. And what really got me into a lot of this was looking at property. So, for example, I started off by looking at the church's agricultural acquisitions in Australia,
Mhm.
which they recently put out a horrific try to cover up press release about.
It's
I
not really
know.
the church. It's the church's company and their subsidiary that does it, but it's not really us. It would be
Not
unfair
really
to say that
us.
we're a real estate company.
Yeah, no,
Seven
I made
degrees
that.
from Kevin Bacon. There's nothing to worry
Exactly.
about.
That's it. I posted that widely when I first came across it. I made a short, and a lot of people said, "Oh, this is from the Lord's Newsroom, that parody site, right?" I'm like, "No." They're like, "Oh, then you just made this up, right? Because this is ridiculous that they're saying the church didn't buy it, property reserve, and it's auxiliary." I said, "Nope, this is right on the church newsroom. You can go and read it." Yeah, I think a lot of people were shocked.
And the thing is that press release was so badly timed, right?
Yeah.
Because
Mhm.
it comes on the heels of this $153 million apartment purchase
Yeah.
in California, where
Florida.
you have another, yeah, in Florida, where you have another issue where the church is trying to overrule the rules that they use for developing rural land. And like the people
Yes.
voted, we don't want to do this. And the church is like, well, we're going to pass a bill that'll let us do it. So I don't want to get off course, but it's, yeah,
So hard
so
not to.
tone deaf. I read,
Yeah.
Rebecca, what you posted, and I was like, I did a double take.
Yeah.
I like an old fashioned spit take because like this can't be real,
What?
So it's like in the SEC response where they had that line, "Did the church fail to maintain its obligations for reporting?" And then the answer was, "We came to a settlement," which is code for you couldn't answer the question, right? So you made something up. So anyway,
Exactly.
go on. I
But
apologize.
those
And we consider the
answers-
matter closed.
Consider the matter closed. But those answers satisfy, all of our friends and relatives that are still faithful members. They're like, oh, they do consider the matter closed.
Closed.
Even a lot of post-Mormons, unless you dig in, it's very complex, especially the land holdings and things. So I appreciate people like Suspicious Might, Jim. You guys are both really good at crunching data and then kind of dumbing it down for the rest of us. So that's why I love these kinds of podcasts. And I think they're so important.
Definitely. And I mean, yeah, it's about the numbers. I mean, and that's what the numbers are for. And I just saw a church job post that they put out several years ago that was for an accounting assistant whose specific job was to look at instances where, now I'm not a financial expert, so I can't even pronounce what the word was, but essentially someone looking at losses, including from insider bad behavior leading to financial losses. And
Interesting.
it's something you wouldn't expect to find. But it really is all about the corporation. And that's what got me into this, was specifically trying to find a lot of those numbers. Because I remember when the SEC stuff came out, I was still a member, and that shocked me and definitely was a shelf item for a while. And then as I dug deeper into it, I found I mean, over $1 billion worth of property and assets that most of which were either not widely reported or just frankly hadn't been reported as far as I can tell. But that's such a small bit of their empire. Like that's the thing. It's so little, but at the same time, it kind of shows a portion of the extent of what they have. And that led me into poking around different parts of the church website that are open and available for anyone to get to. No hacking happened here. And that's what had me stumble on this story.
Well, we're very glad that you did, and you're right. Most things are there for everybody if they can find them, right? It just takes a certain kind of person that's willing to do it. And I just feel like every time in every country where they're forced to be transparent, the laws like Australia, we mentioned Australia and other
Mhm.
countries like that, where they're forced to be transparent, they're up to something in every country. So what does that tell you?
Every
Where they're
time.
not transparent, it's probably worse. But every time when they're forced, we are able to see very clearly that there's something going on.
Always. Well, and I feel like that kind of relates to this topic because one thing that spurred me to look specifically for their data collection methods was, once again, people constantly post like, "Oh, hey, how did they find me? My family doesn't know where I live. How did they know where I'm at?" And I know people had talked about the idea of the church using people data brokers and other methods to find folks, but they kept saying, "Oh, well, this material is now behind a login screen. They've hidden it from public view." Well, with a little bit of Google dorking, which is a specialized way of finding things on Google, it's not that hard to find, well, frankly, stuff on the church tech forum, which is what I did. And that's where you find a lot of people, primarily clerks and executive secretaries, posting a lot of juicy stuff that I don't think they realize is available for the wider public.
Well, as soon as they
Like,
see this, it's not going to be right. I mean,
oh,
you're
yeah,
yeah.
Grab your
yeah, that's
screenshots now, guys, right now,
yes.
because it's all over.
Wayback Machine. Always got to get that stuff stored. So yeah, I stumbled on a lot of what they were writing, and as we'll see in the episode, this isn't a new phenomenon. I was finding things as far back as 2008, 2009,
Wow.
where they're talking about this process. And it also kind of shows this weird gray line, from what I could tell, that the church lets wards and stakes get into, where they appear to be passively endorsing a lot of these creepy techniques, and especially because they do some of them at their home at the headquarters, which we'll get into. But when it comes to the wards and stakes and stuff, it really looks like they're pushing them in that direction, sometimes getting a direct green light and other times just wink wink nod nod, have at it. And yeah, it just kind of shows the how these techniques have spread across a lot of different areas and how
No,
they're specifically employed.
this is what we're talking about here is the methods employed to find people, right?
Mhm.
How they're tracking you down because there's been a number of issues tied to data that they pull from your cell phones when you log on. There's also been issues that have crept up in the past of people basically signing away the rights to to their child's image when they go to a church activity.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So that was something that people in my family discussed. So the church actively takes advantage of the trust that the members have in it. And when you have somebody who finds out, hey, if my kid goes to this youth camp and they take a picture, the church owns the rights to my child's image forever. And so there's a lot of things where just because people are so trusting. Now they wouldn't be that trusting if they had the same thing come from a school,
Right.
right? But because it's the church knows that they can get away with it. So they will push people to do things in the good name of the church because people will accept it. And even if it's creepy, if your neighbor down the street was to do it, people will find it less creepy because they'll say, well, it's the Lord's institution that's doing it. And so the church knows they can push people to do things that might be even borderline unethical because it's attached to the Lord's purpose.
It's not lying for the Lord, it's data mining for the Lord, right? You have to do it because you got to find these souls. That's it.
That is the best line I've heard in many months. So that's great. Well, no, you're right. And it just brief little tangent. It's like when they put up advertisements for their new media campaigns they're doing, and they're asking for, hey, we need Middle Eastern looking people. We need Latino descendant people. And hey, anything you do, we're going to underpay you, and we're going to keep the rights to it for the rest of who knows how long. Yeah. And it just comes off as weird, but because it's, like you said, good name of the church, they got to do it. They got to show people that the gospel's for everyone by hiring actors to make it seem that way. Yeah. So definitely intense.
High demand commodities.
Yes. And so with a lot of this, the church's use of these data brokers is certainly not unique. And I will say off the start, I don't have the biggest background in cyber and data mining, but I've done enough research to learn that it's a big problem. And privacy issues are a huge problem, both with the church and also in the broader commercial sphere. I mean, everything that we do when it relates to the internet is being mined and taken by companies and brokers that are trying to sell that information to other companies and brokers. And anytime you interact with the web, there's some group, some company, something trying to get your data to be able to sell it. Like a few examples that I pulled up from recent stuff. There's an airline-owned data broker that several of the airlines are involved with, and they're currently selling your flight information to ICE so that they can sort through it to find people they want to deport and kidnap and do all the horrible things they're doing right now. There's also a startup that is specializing in going through leaked data collections online to sell the information to debt collectors and divorce lawyers. So imagine going through your divorce and then having this private investigator dig through the spouses, who knows, leaked emails, leaked accounts, leaked something to be able to use that in court. It's absolutely insane. Trump is working with this big surveillance company, and he's trying to get all of the government agencies to give Americans data into one central database that they can use to, well, they would probably say something about national security, but really to crack down on dissidents and critics and basically manage this massive surveillance effort on the American people. In addition, there's another company that I was looking at that they want the offices of doctors for people that the police are investigating so they can track when those people are going to the doctor, because they can get that from your phone. They can get that from a lot of the devices that we have, and when they interact with other devices. If they have
the address, they can track when you go to the doctor. Okay.
Correct. Yep. They'll know when you're going, and it's horrifying to think about. And then also, this was very recently, but Florida's Attorney General's office is trying to get all this data on people who attended essentially a pride event at a restaurant, and they're demanding reservation logs, contracts, guest lists, just because they want that data. And you don't know where that data is going to wind up and where it's going. So there's a lot of people after your data. It's not just the church, but the fact that the church is doing some of the things we're going to talk about is very concerning. If it's meant to be Christ's one and true only restored church, why in the world is it doing these very unethical, creepy, stalkish tactics to keep a hold of people? This just as a brief image. This is from a Federal Trade Commission report where they talk about how social media companies and video streaming companies, where they get the data from that they use to sell to other people. So you can see here some of the examples. They've got, for example, when you're connecting to their websites, they're gathering your IP, they're gathering your location as best they can, they're gathering your usage, what you click on, what you hover over, what other websites you've been to, because they'll use cookies to track like where else you've been, so they can sell that information to other people. They'll put on advertising tracking tech. They'll buy data from people. Some of them will use open source information to gather more stuff on you. Essentially, there's this whole world this whole world of people trying to find you. The FTC specifically said, and this is from last year, that these companies, the um, social media and video streaming companies, are at the forefront of this mass commercial surveillance project that threatens Americans' privacy in so many ways. So it's a really crazy, insane world. And the fact that this is an issue is something that should be talked about both within church context and out of it. But in our specific case, looking at church involvement, if we move forward, we want to talk about data brokers because we mentioned them earlier, and that's where a lot of people in the church are starting, based on what we're seeing in the post, they're using data brokers to get information on members who are either no longer attending or have gone off the radar or have left. Maybe they haven't removed their records. I wasn't entirely sure from a lot of the posts if they're going after people on the do not contact list, but I would not be surprised if they are. But
So
just to quickly, oh, go ahead. Yeah.
If you have somebody like some of us who
Mhm.
are vocal on social media, okay, so we're not, viciously like Ed Decker's like parading back and forth in Temple Square in our garments or anything like that, but
Mhm.
we are
Not yet.
consistent voices of criticism. Not yet. No, nobody wants to see me like that. And so my question is, when let's say we go out and we hashtag something, like you hashtag LDS Church, and it's negative, can they look at how those hashtags are used and then say, okay, well, this person's hashtagging us routinely, and then go back and flag us for data mining that way?
Oh, 100%. There are so many social media analytical tools that exist, and the church hires people to work on that from what I've seen on their job postings. I mean, I've told this to people before on Reddit. Like, there's an app that you, not even an app, there's a tool you can use to look at when someone is in Reddit and when they're posting and what time zone they're in. I mean, I didn't even know that was a thing until I was looking into some more of these open source tools. There's so much out there that can be mined that you should just assume that anything you're putting online, they can find. I mean, we know they're watching the ex-Mormon Reddit because they change things when it gets too controversial, right? But I
Oh,
have
yeah.
no doubt that they have people watching what you're hashtagging, what general social media information is saying about the church, what the general vibe is. They've got, I have no doubt they have a lot of experts who are using the various softwares out there to analyze that in ways that are also kind of creepy and aren't very different from like multinational corporations and other commercial entities trying to win customers and keep them
Yeah.
and be stockish. So
No, I know that's true. And I know that if you're a more prominent podcaster, that there is actually a person assigned to you. It was explained to me, like, say, a John Delaney is going to have a person at the church assigned to watch every single thing he puts out and monitor his presence and everything. If you're a smaller podcast, like a Mormonish, you might have somebody that's assigned to watch, 5 of the smaller but there's definitely somebody keeping an eye. And I know this works. One of the greatest examples is I posted and talked about a picture that I found on the church website where it was a mission president's wife and she'd been cut off from here.
I remember that.
Right?
I
Remember that?
remember
And
that.
so we were
Yes.
saying, oh my gosh, no one even noticed for 11 years. A day later, it was fixed. A day later, it was her whole face. That is not a coincidence. Remember the very unfortunate article about the holes filled with sex. Do you remember that? Yeah, it was an article the church put out about people who were divorced and what can they do now,
Looking
that
to
they're
fill
no
the holes
longer
left
having
empty by
intimate
sex.
relations. And it said, what can you do to fill the holes that were once filled by sex? Gardening, book club were the main reasons. But everyone, this is kind of how Nuance Ho got her, splash into the media. She made some hilarious TikToks about it. All of us were talking about it. Within a day, it was changed. More recently, she'll never forget that night in the barn, right? It was the title of an article about Mary Whitmer and a confirmation of the golden place. Of course, when you say barn and she'll never forget in a Mormon context, everyone's like, oh my God, Fanny Elder. They changed the title. So I know they watch us. That's
Yeah.
absolutely true. So, but you're saying here that the LDS Church uses these sophisticated methods like data brokers and things just to try to get a hold of, maybe what podcasters are doing, track individual members. That's pretty interesting. Creepy, I think, is the word we keep using.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of this, what's interesting here is a lot of this isn't necessarily just directed at like dissident members, I'd say.
Mhm.
Like they probably have, like you were talking about, these specialized folks working on
Right.
that who totally exist. Because I remember when I put up a post pointing out how the church hosted this really homophobic conference and had this awful news release on it, they changed it the next day. It was really
Hmm.
funny to watch. But in terms of what we're talking about here, a lot of this is more geared towards finding members who have either been disaffected, gone quote unquote less active, or they just don't know where they live, which is almost worse in a way because
Yeah.
it's quote unquote understandable if they're going after dissidents, but if they're just finding average people who have, made a choice not to go to church, it's really, really creepy and just shows the lengths to which they're going and to which tithing money is being used on a lot of these techniques.
That is
And
a
like,
really, really good point. And it's we Landon had an experience just last month. So he has a son who was a missionary who got married. They did not get married in the temple. They have never lived at Landon's address as a married couple. There's no information on any church record about his son and his new wife. They've been married for about 2 years. All of a sudden, to Landon's house, knock on the door, it was someone looking for the new wife, Landon's daughter in law. How would they connect his address to this daughter in law? Never connected to the church, nothing. How? Nobody could figure that out. But obviously, there was something in the data that showed that his son got married, that he had grown up in Landon's house, and then they connected it to the daughter in law. It just kind of was creepy. That's the word, creepy.
well, and that's all stuff you can get on these data brokers. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's the amount of stuff that they have here is absolutely insane. Like the Electronic Privacy Information Center talks about how these essentially unregulated companies are gathering so much information that can impact your life in a lot of ways. It's funny, they talk about how you can be denied credit. There's specific warnings on a lot of the websites saying, oh, you cannot use these for credit purposes, but people do. All you have to do is click through and say, oh, not going to do that. And they get all this information on you. Like as they talk about here, there's things like your name, address, telephone, gender, age, marital status, child, education, profession, income, political preferences. I'm sure you guys remember the Cambridge Analytica scandal back during the beginning of the right before the first Trump administration, and they were collecting all that information based on an app some people had connected to Facebook. This is the kind of thing they're going after because the more they know about you, the more they can sell you things that will be more appealing. But then on a scarier note, the more they can try to sway, they being whoever, being a company, a foreign government, your own government, can try to sway you to think a certain way or react to things in a certain way. So really, I've heard some people say, well, it doesn't matter that they're gathering all this, whatever, I got nothing to hide. Well, it's not about what you're hiding. It's about what they're hiding. What are they gathering this data for? They have a digital profile of you that can be used in so many nefarious ways, some of which we'll talk about here. But there's a wide, wide world that we can't get into here about what these companies are doing. And like they say here, they can sell your real-time location data. I don't want anyone knowing where I am. It's absolutely insane. But where these come in is there are a lot of brokers that are specifically focused on finding people. I'll put a list of them up here. I debated putting up a list because I was like, oh, I don't want stalkers to see them. But then I remembered if they're stalkers, they already know about
They
them and they're
already
using
know.
them. They already know.
There's a fine
This is
line between your minister and a stalker, right? It's like that thin. So,
exactly. So, yeah, exactly. There's so little line there between what would we call it in English? Like the guy who's spying on you, the informant, that's the word, between
yes.
informant and ministering brother. So here on the left, well, my left, you've got several of the companies, and this isn't even all of them. These are just a few that you can find on OSINT related sites, and OSINT being open source intelligence, where you are using any kind of open data to find information on a target. OSINT is used by a lot of people for great things. Investigative journalists use it. Investigators who are looking into crime or looking into fraud use it a lot. Politicians and watchdog groups use it, and businesses use it. And then you have really creepy usages like stalkers, like what the church is doing, but they have all these resources available. Some of them are better than others. Some of them require a paid membership or you pay per report that you generate. And interestingly, you will find family search and ancestry stuff on there,
Oh,
which makes sense because I've found plenty of living people's information on Ancestry.
Mm-hmm.
You can find plenty of stuff. It's really not that secure in that regard. And you can go into one of these and search someone's name. Some of them will let you search by address or by phone number or just by name. And the amount of information they'll pull up just blows your mind. Like I said, these can be really helpful for certain people, but it's also really easy to blur that ethical line and get into usages that violate people's trust, especially when you're talking about a religious institution. So remember some of these. Remember Spokio, Intelius.
Mm-hmm.
Who else did they talk about in the post? There's just a few of them they're going to bring up. And we were talking earlier about the kids whose pictures are being used by the church and they sign away their rights on it. So if you look at the church's privacy policy on their website, there were a few things that stood out, and I'm not a privacy expert, but I looked at a few things that are on here and I saw that some of them are similar to what you see in big multinational company websites, which might be the standard for the industry, or it's another indicator that the church is a business. So they
Again,
say
it's
here,
a church, right? It's a church.
so
Why do they have
so
these
they tell
rules?
me.
It's a church.
Yeah, they keep telling me it's just a church, but yeah, I don't know. Weird stuff here. So they claim they're collecting your data for so this is when you get onto the church website, you can click on their data policy, and they say they're collecting it for, genealogy, because why wouldn't they be collecting your stuff for genealogy, humanitarian, social welfare, missionary, blah, blah, blah. And when you're going on the church website, if you're not using a VPN and other privacy apps and extensions, they can see a lot. They can find a lot of stuff on you just by you clicking on the website, which is why everyone should use a VPN and everyone should use privacy extensions.
So something else. Go back to the last one. Okay.
Totally. Why is it not going back? Hold on. It's being weird.
Just maybe.
Well, that's fine. But let's talk about the nebulous wording at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Other operational and administrative uses. Okay. Those are very, very, those are attorney language. That's weasel wordage, right?
Yeah.
Those are very, very large terms. So whatever they define as administrative is what they're going to use it for. So if you come back and you say, hold on a second, I did not agree to have you track what was on my phone or whatever, they're going to go, oh, well, that's how we do this, or that's operational. Those kind of nebulous wordings is where people should have a red flag go up. What constitutes operational? What constitutes administrative? If they're not if they don't give you the opportunity to investigate what that means, then they're probably taking more than you would want them to have.
100%. Because who knows what that means? Are they being operational for Jesus, or are they?
See, and that's the question. Is it ecclesiastical? Because what they do here is they say ecclesiastical. Everybody understands that they want to talk about church. Genealogy. Everybody loves genealogy. Okay, Mormons, we love that. Humanitarian and social welfare, those are very warm-hearted things. Missionary teaching, and then at the end of this, after listing the things that they know people are going to agree with, they slip in the language that is the corporate, other operational and administrative purposes, which you are going to accept that language based upon the good things that they told you. Okay, so just wanted to throw that out there. The way things are written is very, very important.
Very nebulous by design.
And I mean, it's what you'll see on a lot of companies, right? Like that's what is so stark here, is how similar so much of this is to a company. Like, what other church are you going to find that has this? And someone will probably go and find another church that has that policy thing, but whatever. And what's interesting too to me is when they say, oh dear, come on, when they say you've given them data. And it's such a wide range of instances. When you join the church, seek ordinances, request church materials. How many of us are requesting it when the missionaries show up on our doorstep? Requesting access to church tools, or engage in other interactions or communications with the church. What does that mean? What does that mean?
It means everything.
Every
after email you send, every communication, every request, it means we're collecting every interaction. That's what they're telling you, or they reserve the right. to categorize every interaction that they have with you.
And they're
Yeah.
coming up with more and more ways to interact. Over on the faithful subreddits, they're saying, oh, there's this new app. We all log on. It helps us know when someone needs help moving or this and that. Everybody sign up. Oh, there's this new thing to get activities out there. Sign up. So in my mind, they're coming up with all these new ways that they can get your data by having you sign up for this cool new tool, right?
Which they then take
100%.
and aggregate and create a profile.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. I mean, think about Just Serve. How many people did they get on that one?
Oh my gosh. Yep. Because of
So
Mr.
many.
Beast. Yep. No,
Yeah.
that was huge.
It's insane the amount of stuff they're able to get on that. And I mean, you remember the creepy area books that they have in that missionaries have. Like the amount of stuff that's on there and personal data is, I mean, they've already got a ton even just through that method. So these other methods they use, and even with these new public-facing ward pages they have, when you click on an activity, I think you talked about this in one of your videos, like you click on it, they're going to gather all this info on you in the guise of, oh, we want to help people be ready for you. Where's that data going? It's going for operational administrative purposes, for all you know.
No, that's true. And I have a pet peeve about even Family Search because, they put those Family Search centers all around. They're like some are embedded like in a museum, some are pop-up. They get people, how exciting, come, our missionaries will help you input your data, right? Bring your records. There it is, another touch point where you've put a lot of data, right? You've put your parents' name in there, where your parents were born in there for the sake of genealogy. But we don't know exactly what that is all used for. I have a huge problem with this, Family Search. It sounds all family friendly, but I think there's something more to it.
Oh, 100%. It's really creepy, especially when if you're looking at trying to find documents for a foreign country, sometimes you'll search government documents for Scotland, and actually Family Search's wiki will be one of the first things that comes up because it just blows my mind. Just briefly here, they talk about how they will get things from published sources. They'll get living information. These are things they gather, and they're kind of admitting to it here in a way, low-key, subtle way. And then this just goes to show they're going to be sending, like we talked about with the social media analysis, they'll use your data for, among other things, data analysis, measurement services, data-driven social media messaging, surveys, and so on, with whatever that so on happens to entail. So clearly here they're talking about they are going to use your data. So you are giving it over to them by visiting or by engaging with the church in any single way. I don't know, a butterfly flaps its wings in one continent and the Mormon church has your data on another. Who knows? But if we want to look in at the actual posts, we can certainly do that. So the Church Tech Forum is part of the church's website. They have a little disclaimer that it doesn't represent official church doctrine or teachings or policies or blah, blah, blah. Church leaders, not leaders, employees do go on there sometimes and post things in these forums responding to people's questions. But really a lot of what we have here are people who are clerks, executive secretaries, and others who are talking about, in some cases, just hey, why does my computer not work? Or, hey, how does this church software, how's this supposed to work? What do I do for this filing? And it's really interesting because some of it's mundane, some of it's pretty funny, and some of it is weird and gives you a good insight into what the thought process is here. And going back to how we mentioned that this is not a new phenomenon for the church to be using these databases, like this post from 2008, this guy's talking about how they spent $85 on one of these databases and they were able to find all this information, including possible family splits, addresses that are invalid for postal delivery, places that aren't residences. And they specifically called someone to make this their calling, to be a cyber sleuth, to be a cyber stalker. Can you imagine getting that calling? You are being set apart to creep on people online and find their information and provide it to the church for church purposes. And say what? Oh yeah,
I wonder if they announced it in sacrament meetings. So and so has been called to be the ward sleuth. You're like, damn it!
It would be ward data specialist.
Oh, you're right.
Right?
It would never be ward sleuth. You're right.
But let's take a step here. All right, we're looking at this, and this person has been told that their role is to find the one. right? They literally become Jesus in that terrible painting of him chasing the lamb down. We're like,
So
Jesus
Mhm.
is kind of blurry and the lamb is scared as shit, right?
Yeah.
But that's so what we're talking about is let's comprehend that the people who serve this role in their ward, they're not bad people. They are genuinely doing what they think that they need to do, what the institution wants them to do. This is a case of bad systems, but well-meaning people, right? So I just want to kind of make it because I can just see someone's grandma being so happy that she gets to do this, right? And feeling moved and feeling the spirit when she contacts somebody, right? But the fact that we are now that the Lord's institution is like we're going to spend money so we can get more of this, and we're going to call somebody specifically to creep on people. Um, this is stunning. I want to see what else you have.
Yeah,
Oh,
and I have to
definitely.
say, I have relatives, older relatives, who served a senior mission, and that was their only purpose. They had 1,500 names that they were supposed to go out and find, right? That was their purpose, to find
Oh
these
my
people
God.
on this mission, right?
Oh,
And they came back and that they reported, but yeah, that means go door to door. That means I'm sure have access to some of these kinds of tools and to kind of weed out who's here, who's not here. Sometimes I wonder if it has something to do with, the very abysmal membership
that's
numbers. You know
that's
what I
that's
mean?
where I was
Because
going with this.
yeah,
Two thirds of the average church of ward's attendance
right,
doesn't show up.
right.
And Observe and Report does a really good job of showing that the average ward attendance is between 115 and 135, while
Right.
the average rolls are 500 to 700 in some countries.
Exactly. So
So
get rid of those records, and
yeah,
then you have 100 people on the roll and 90 people show up. My God, that's excellent attendance, right? So I think that's part of it because they're told these records that they can't find for these people, they're sent to Salt Lake. They're no longer held in the ward where they were last known. They are moved out. So
and
I
that way
really think it has to do with the membership numbers looking better.
the church can maintain their 17 million number,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
which we all know is closer to 3.5 to 4 million. But that
Mhm.
way they can maintain that facade by having these people do this. That
Yeah.
awesome. Okay.
Well, yeah. Well, and to add on to that too, I mean, we'll get to someone about that actually brings that statistic up in one of these posts going forward. But I think it's also important to look at, is ideological the right word? Some of the ideological drive behind it. And that's one thing I love about this is you see how people are viewing it. And you'll see that a lot of people really do think that this is a God-given way to
Mm-hmm.
find the one and that it's their job to
Yeah.
find them. I remember several months ago, I talked with someone who'd been in church leadership a lot. And I brought up the idea of the church hunting people down and also how hard it is to resign and that it's so burdensome. Why should it be so burdensome? And the person specifically went on about how, oh well, it's the bishop's duty. This is their job. This is required of the Lord. Like they're the ecclesiastical leader. Like there definitely is, from the business perspective, definitely the membership has something to do with it. And then at the local level, I think we do see a lot of people zealously trying to, like you mentioned, trying to do what they think is right.
Mm-hmm.
Although some of them we'll see on here are a-holes. So we'll get some good
A-holes for the
examples here.
Lord. Come
A-holes
on.
for the Lord. That's how it goes. Um, so these ones are from 2009, and just looking at the titles for a lot of these chats, you can see what they're trying to go on about. And this guy's asking about whether or not we should use they should use US search and how it seems to have all of their missing members and claims to have the address and phone numbers. Should we get it? And other people, so what's interesting is some people over the years have pushed back and said, hey, maybe that's not something awards should do. Maybe they shouldn't spend money on it. Some, like the guy in the second post, talk about how that's what they're doing in Salt Lake, is they're using missionaries who do this exact kind of contacting and searching. That thing I sent you guys a few days ago, that was the church job posting for a volunteer position to be a church, what was it? Church member locator specialist or something awful like that, where the job was to call family members and read a script to get their family members' info or something like that. This
Why
third guy
don't they
down.
realize that if somebody wanted to, they would be found? They would walk into a church, they'd say, hey, we want to come back. We want to keep attending. Here's our info. Those that want to be found are going to be found. Those that don't, there's a reason they don't want to be found.
Because they're lost. That's why
I know,
they've lost the
I
light
know,
of Jesus. The light in their
I
eyes
know,
is gone, and that makes it harder to find them.
I know.
Yeah, no, it's insane. Like, and you can see that in the way these people talk about it. Like the idea of it just people not wanting to be contacted. Only a few folks will bring that up, and the rest are like, "Oh, we gotta find him." Um, I mean, yeah, just summarizing more what we see on here. Like, there's a lot of debate about whether the ward should pay for it or if people themselves should pay for it. And then this guy at the end talks about how he runs the name and date of birth, which the church has because they get that as soon as you join. And they run it through this one data broker site, get the free answers, and then use another one to narrow down what's there, to narrow down and find out where the person is.
Is this
And
data
this,
for people over the age of 18? Because I do see a lot of posts from people saying, oh my gosh, this woman showed up. She started talking to my 10-year-old. She said she was the primary president. I mean, I'm guessing maybe, I don't know if that information would be available about a child or a minor, but we know that does happen where well-meaning leaders reach out and talk to minors and parents
Mhm.
get really upset. So I wonder if they're tracking minors.
It's a good question. I'm trying to remember if I'll have to look into that later and see if there's minor
Yeah.
information on there. But like it'll show siblings. Like if you look
Um,
yourself up on some of them, you can see
Yeah.
all of your siblings. So I guess it
yeah,
depends on who they'll show.
Yeah.
Um, so that's interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. Because if you looked
Um,
up, say, an 18-year-old and it listed all of their 6 younger siblings there, then you
these
would know, hey,
sites,
here's a whole family who
if
needs to.
they're reporting data for adults and they're reporting households, if they're reporting households, then they're going to be
Household.
able to show who the children are in the household, what school they go to, what district they're in. So I would imagine that when somebody goes and plugs in information for a less active couple or something like that, they're going to find out, oh, well, they have kids. These are primary aged kids.
Hmm.
So we're going to give this over to the primary, and that's how they end up at the front door.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, and also people's social media, right? I mean, the amount of stuff people are putting up, there's a prediction that a good chunk of child-related identity fraud here in the next few years is going to be because of oversharing by parents on social media. So, I mean, if someone can find your social media, which these guys talk about doing here in a little bit, and you've been putting up stuff about your kids and you don't have the right settings on, your information's an open book. Like at that point, they can find you, and it's not that difficult to figure out everything. Um, Moving forward to like 2018, this is the line that just always gets me. We use Intelius, a people search service recommended by our state to find lost
Lost
souls.
souls.
There it is.
Yeah, there it is right there. And it's recommended by the state. So there's endorsement at the local level. And their ward is paying $20 a month for it out of their budget. And he's trying to find out how other people have been using it. And it just blows my mind, first of all, that there's that confirmation right there. Like, oh, yeah, we're using it. Okay, the end of debate. It's there. It's being put to use. And then this next guy's talking about another one that he's using these unlimited subscriptions for. And it's funny, he kind of talks about how it gets less useful. Some of them really are not that useful. Others, though, are. And what gets really creepy, though, is here at the bottom, where the second guy talks about how easy it is to track homeowners with county assessor websites, and then talks about creeping on people using Facebook. But it's hard to find renters and drifters. That comes up a lot, actually. A lot of people are talking about, oh, my ward has very transient members, lots of renters. We have such a hard time tracking them down, which, just leave them alone. But that's not an option in Mormon Core. But county assessor websites, that is
That's
really
next
big and
level.
important.
That's really
That is
digging.
next level. And again, I always say there's this huge push, be baptized, right? Be clean,
Mhm.
be born again. I've even seen, the missionaries just talk about it in these very vague, be baptized terms. In regular Christianity, to be baptized means get in a church and you accept Jesus. There's some kind of ceremony, and there you are, you've accepted Christ. In the LDS church, to get baptized means data mine right away. You have to fill out, there is a record that begins, and then all of this starts. The next thing you know, they're on the county assessor website looking for you because you haven't returned to church after your baptism. So people don't realize,
Mhm.
blessing a baby or those touch points, that's where it starts. And then like a snake, it can weave all through your life.
Yeah. The name by which you'll be known in the records of the church
That's
is
it.
asset number XXXX1 or whatever.
AHX1138.
Yeah. We're
Exactly.
a record keeping people. And not only are there records on earth, there are records in heaven. Everything is written down. Everything is a record. If you look at church history, look at the Book of Mormon, look at the next life through that. And this is something that Dr. John Lundwell talks about a lot because of, literacy in the Book of Mormon, but we're a record keeping people. Everything must be documented and written down. Nothing is private. That's just how we
Nothing.
roll.
Not a thing. In heaven, in earth, and in the cloud.
Yeah.
So it's all over the place.
And in the cloud.
And with Intelius, I went in and did a search on myself and hopefully did a good job of blocking all my data. In the end, it wound up being, it was like $20 to get access, and I was not willing to pay that. But when you look at what they're bringing in and what they claim to bring in, because sometimes there is a difference there, they're claiming to have my phone numbers, email addresses, education, and that's just for this little highlighted circle. There's all these others. Like they will get your jail records, they'll get your whatever commercial and financial information is available for you, especially the good ones. The good ones that you're paying a decent amount of money for,
So
they can find it all.
it just dawned on me. I actually used one of these services once. We had a guy in our ward who actually got arrested for sexual assault. And I was one of the people involved in getting him arrested, right?
Hmm.
And I remember we were looking into the information on him because I was talking to the prosecutor. I'm like, well, I'm going to go do some digging myself. I actually used one of these, and it turned up stuff on him from where he was like state welfare. Like it turned up that he
Wow.
was on state welfare and all this other stuff. So yeah, so that brings me to another thing, right? So if you go to the bishop and you're one of those people who's continue asking for welfare, they could very well ask a ward data specialist to pull up your information and see what you're like. They could say it's no longer trust me, I'm out of work, I'm having a problem. They could say this person's asking for ward welfare. Let's take a look at what their situation is. You may walk into your bishop's interview, they have more information on you than you do. And that's terrifying.
Yeah. And if you're a federal worker, for example, there's a website that posts your salary every year by name. You get to see how much someone in the government is making down from
I'm
the
a state
lowest
employee.
level.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if I imagine they have it for state as well,
Yep, they
but
do.
I know at least for federal. Yeah. So there's all these sources of data out there. I mean, you have all these data trails that people don't realize we're leaving out, and that's the way our economy works. And I could ramble on that for a while, but not going to.
I
But
saw a
yeah,
post today where several people indicated that their bishop at tithing declaration had requested their tax return from last
oh
year
God.
or their W-2. Really? You're going to hand, and that's to make sure they were paying a full and honest tithe. And I can imagine if the bishop asked that, some people would give, oh, yes, here's my tax return. Here are all of our social security numbers. Here's where I do, what the hell?
Yeah. Like they should not have that info, and it's not
Exactly.
secure.
The people
It
are
is not
so
secure with the
innocent
church.
and trusting.
They,
Yeah.
and that's how they want them to be.
Yeah.
It's terrible. Uh, Going to this one, this is from 2017. They talk about how, so as far as I understand it, they're at least before 2022, the wards were expected to put in a lot of work to find these members, and if they couldn't find them, they get sent to church headquarters to the address unknown unit. There was some guilt and shame between a lot of these clerks about doing that. Like they felt like they hadn't done their work enough if they didn't put in the extra effort to find these people, because then they're creating more of a burden for Salt Lake, which is also a pretty manipulative mindset that is instilled in them. And he talks about here that addresses unknown started sending back a bunch of addresses to each ward to look up on their own each quarter. So they're outsourcing this work that they're already making unpaid people do with church headquarters to the unpaid and overworked volunteers at the ward level. And he talks about the 9 steps. The 8 and 9 steps come up a lot about what you're supposed to do to find someone whose records are missing. And I have another post that talks about that in a moment. But he kind of walks through the process of how that just got so overwhelming that that's what led to a lot of these wards going into these people's search programs, these data brokers, to try to get that info before they get, as he puts it here, like buried by everything they're getting from Salt Lake. And
so the sentence here is wild. The practice of each quarter sending 20 records of lost members back to the wards, making them appear as normal members moving back in, was overwhelming to our workload that we could not keep up even before the old records began coming back. That is unfreaking believable.
This whole slide is unbelievable. Everybody freeze on this slide when you get a chance and just read through the whole thing. Look at this last one. We are wearing down the 30% of active members attending sacrament meetings due to all the effort required by the 70% who have fallen off the path and chosen the large and spacious building. This is what's so funny. You have all this technical stuff. Let's use this and this data finder. Large and spacious building, and these religious terms, you can see the mindset of why they're doing it.
Listen to that language. The automatic assumption,
right?
The individuals who they can't find are off the path, and that they've chosen something that is ultimately destructive for them.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to talk about cultural conditioning?
Yeah.
They're not saying we should not be doing this. They are not saying we should not be digging in these people's background. They are not saying the church should not be sending this back to us. But they are kind of. But they say, well, we have to do this because we have to find these people and bring them back on the path. But they are so propagandized into believing that that's their role that they have ceased to know where that line is. It goes back to the ethical line you talked about earlier.
Yeah. And look here, they actually admit that new converts are falling off, which is a bigger and bigger problem. It says we need a personal progress guide to blessings and eternal life to help the new converts work out their own salvation and remain active during their first years, because the present methods are not retaining enough new converts. There it is at a grassroots level. They're saying
it's right there.
They're not staying.
And
then we have to find them after they leave.
And this is coming from ward clerks getting on this form to ask for help.
Right.
And they're very blunt.
Revealing. Yeah.
Very revealing. They tell it like it is in a lot of ways, and then explain how we're all such a big damn inconvenience to them because we are off the path. This whole slide is insane. Just what they say and admit to here.
But so let me understand this. So the church headquarters is sending back records from the dead letter file or the missing member file to the wards to have them, to kind of farm out the responsibility for continuing to search. Is what is happening?
Yeah, based on my understanding of what they're describing here, yes. They would get them back, and then they get more coming in, and they've got their own normal records to deal with. So it really is just offloading this massive burden onto already overworked church volunteers.
Right. Well, speaking of massive burden, if we knew the number of records in the missing record file, isn't that where the 15 million are? I mean, isn't that going to be the hugest database of all? They must know all these people are, they hightailed it out of there. They are not in the church. We got to get into that vault. Who's with
you? Well, 20 records per quarter to different wards. I mean, that adds up really quick. It makes you wonder how many wards. And this is back in 2017. So this is before even a lot of this other stuff happened, which is nuts. This one, there's a ton with it. So I put it into the little bits. But once again, another guy saying that his stake is recommending that they use Intelius to find the lost souls. And I'm trying to remember what he talks about here. So he's sending out records. He's doing checking the addresses that he finds. And then he's asking about his concern is that he's been sending out records to the wrong wards, not that he's using a data broker to look up where people live and can't find their address.
Let's think about this from another more angering issue. This is putting a voluntold individual in a local ward in a position where they are now accessing private information of ward members on a routine basis. How does the church put any kind of protection against that ward member taking the information they find through the church system to have them not abuse it?
Yeah.
Right? We are taking people with no vetting, no background. There's nothing in it that says that we are not telling the church, hey, if you leave the church, we're going to assign somebody in your ward to find your personal information and come find you. That includes your tax information, the names of your children, how much money you make. That's what they're giving ward members access to in the name of tracking people down. That is, I just made that connection and my face is turning red because I'm genuinely pissed. So how much of my personal information in the last 4 years since I stopped attending church does somebody in my ward now have?
And it's probably stored on a Google Drive.
Yeah.
That was another thing I talked about later is when I went through it some more is the number of people who were saying, oh yeah, our ward keeps everything on Google Drives and Google Docs, and some of it's on paper in closets at the ward building. Like, this is not secure.
No.
Like, your information is not being preserved. And they won't do this to vet people working with children, but they're going to do this to find the lost souls.
Oh,
like,
wow.
That is so...
Wow.
Like, this shows they have the capability. They just have a priority about when it should be used.
Yeah, I don't think they do this for any other reason, than to try to find him. I just think about the therapist that was just arrested for inappropriate behavior with his clients, and he had been arrested before. Yet, through my sources, I found out he was just called to be the executive secretary in his ward.
Oh, God.
They didn't look into him at all, his past and what was going on currently. They did not look into him, and he has access to people now.
I don't want to get too off course, but I'm going to say this. One of the things I mentioned on TikTok about a week ago was that when it comes to abuse in the church is particularly susceptible to the issue because they're the ones who call people by the spirit of discernment into positions where they can abuse. Other religions, it's like, hey, I'm going to volunteer to mow the lawn. I'm going to go to school. I went to a theology school, right? Only in Mormonism do they say, hey, Brother Reynolds, let's take you, when you're not being a plumber, let's take you and give you access to the kids in the church. And now, hey, let's take your wife who has no background in anything, and let's give her access to the personal data mining for ward members, which means abuse that stems from this, the church could be sued for and should be sued for. Because otherwise, that person would not have been placed in a situation where they purchased the subscription and given your name to find you.
Yep, or your children. Yeah. Wow.
With your tithing money.
It's a big issue.
Your tithing.
This is your tithing money.
It's such a huge issue, and there's so many different angles to it, and everyone is more disturbing than the other.
100%.
Oh,
and some of it's as simple as if they would just do a damn Google search.
Yeah.
Like the other day when I found that guy who's doing a mental health night for a ward in Utah, and he's a convicted drug dealer. White collar drug dealer, so church is fine with it. But
alleged, yes.
Allegedly.
Exactly.
Alleged.
No.
But it's ridiculous. Like, how do they spend this much time on these people finder websites to find these new addresses, and yet they won't use it to actually keep people safe?
Because those people are paying tithing and their butts are in the seat. They're doing horrible things, but the church doesn't need to worry about them. They don't need to find them or bring them back. I said last night on the newscast that every time there's some kind of arrest, for sex abuse or child sex abuse, I always look the person up through sources that I have to see if they have been in church leadership, either currently or in the past. And I'm telling you, 9 out of 10 are always somebody that is a bishop or was a high counselor. And even if somebody has things that they were convicted of in the past, they have been made a temple sealer. I mean, it's just horrifying. No one is watching the store when it comes to people sitting in the pews. If you walk out the door, they're going to watch you, they're going to scrutinize you like crazy. But if you're there, there's no accountability.
That other thing I sent you, that was the post about using data to find information about that guy who was in jail so they could send his records to the right ward.
Yeah.
And now they said he did awful things, and yet their whole focus was how do we get him into his new ward? And he's in jail for, I don't even remember what they said, but something awful.
We want him. We want to help him repent. We want to call the church hotline about him. Yeah.
He's leadership material right there. This line, I just can't with this line. Like, I couldn't believe that I was reading it. The way they frame it, like you mentioned with the conditioning.
I just read it.
It says, per the law of witnesses, I cross-reference my findings with social media, property records, and anything else I can think of using return service requested on an envelope is the final confirming witness. Oh my God. So they'll literally send an envelope that they know is the wrong address and say, please give a new address. And so it'll be sent back to them. But they're totally couching it in these religious terms. This is why they're doing it. It's all okay.
See, this is okay. So this is important, right? For the people doing this, it's an affirmation of the Spirit. If you're looking at it from the outside, it's the proof that that Spirit's not there, right? If this is the true the Church of God, if this is everything that it says it needs to be, and the Spirit moves as miraculously as we're told across all these generations, then the extent that they go to, right, is searching through your property records and everything else. That is not what I would say is a godly effort, right? If God works on the heart, if God speaks to you, if you're in that low moment and you're crying, and the Holy Ghost should be able to get you. And when I was on a mission, man, that was what we were told: is you're going to find the elect. They're going to be prepared, right? And it was the Spirit was supposed to guide you there, and you were praying for guidance. The fact that the idea is that we're not praying for guidance anymore. We are digital sleuthing, and we're going to find people. We're going to track them down. And it just goes to show that the concept, they know that those religious concepts don't work. And so what they're doing is they're relying on the arm of flesh. Like, I'm trying to couch this from, but like, this is all arm of flesh stuff, right? This is corporations trying to track down customers.
Paying for guidance, not praying for guidance, right?
Paying for guidance.
Exactly. And
you're great at catchphrases tonight.
I'm all about catchphrases. That's me. That's right. Usually it's Landon that does that. He's not here, so I'm having to try. So
you're doing a great job. So as I mentioned, there are people who do debate about it. There's some people who say this isn't something that a church should spend money on. Why are you doing this? This guy here doesn't have a problem with the money going to a data broker. He's concerned that they're not using a free one, because it'll find name, address, phone number, complete details without getting into the criminal background stuff. That includes aliases, age, current address, previous address, current phone numbers, email addresses, relatives, and so on. And then he goes on to say, granted, not all phone numbers are on file, but it's truly scary what information it does have. Well, no shit, Sherlock. It is scary, and it's scary that you have it.
That's right. Look at the next one, though. Yeah. The next one is great. You're right. This guy's like, you know what? I don't know that we're supposed to be like paying for this stuff. We're supposed to be, as he says here, feet on the ground, walking around the neighborhood, trying to find the person, talking to other people in the ward. That's what we're supposed to be doing. We're not supposed to be in a bunker with some kind of database and all kinds of computers and a drone looking for someone. So I think that guy kind of gets it and feels weird about it. He's like, yeah, we're supposed to kind of just be doing more organic finding. But no.
Although he does say the types of things church headquarters doesn't have access to.
Exactly.
So they've got access to the rest
walking
of it.
Around. Yeah. Knocking on doors and saying, hey, is your mommy home? Are you home?
Right.
Yep.
And yeah, there's debate here where they're like, oh yeah, we use these websites, but the church hasn't given clear guidance on it. Like this guy here's going on about how Facebook can be useful to determine if a less active single adult has married. And sometimes what city they have moved to, which helps narrow down the options.
Like you're looking for pictures of their honeymoon. Oh, look, it looks like he finally landed someone. Oh, here the cruise. Oh my, looks like she has a daughter bringing into the marriage. Oh, looks like she's about a, sunbeam age. This is the kind of stuff they're doing. I can totally see, because sometimes I stalk people on Facebook, not to bring them back to the church, but for other reasons. So I get it.
Yeah.
Learn a lot just from pictures like that. Then you can use it, to further the mission of the church, I guess is what they're saying. But wow, that's crazy.
It's insane. And this guy on the third one who goes, I consider a couple hours checking free services my due diligence. And if nothing comes up after that, then so be it. So God's happy as long as he puts in a couple of free hours just searching for our data, because that's what Jesus wants. I just think of that smiling Jesus thumbs up meme. It seems applicable here.
I just can't. So I had a friend who left the church right after college and moved to LA, right? Gone,
Mhm.
and this is back in the 80s. And one day she told me, "Oh my God, some missionaries showed up at my new job." Like she had no idea how they could have found her in her new job. They came to her place of work. They asked if she could come outside, and she's
Oh
just like,
God.
"Get out of here. Get out of here." It's that kind of thing where how really did they think these people are going to react when they're tracked down? Is it going to be open arms and what took you so long? No, in a lot of cases when it's invasive like that, it's going to be get out of here.
But
Leave my family alone.
that's what they're told. The
Exactly.
narrative is always when you show up, they're going to be lost. They're going to need you. They're going to need what you give. So we are, especially like in the MTC, right? When you're on the mission, everything you're told is they need you. You are there to teach, not to be taught, right? And that's the attitude. So what we're told, what we're taught is that they need us. And whether they like it or not at first, they will thank us for coming back. And there's always that stories about the missionary who put his foot in the door so that they couldn't shut the door. And, the ones who get aggressive and, testify and all that stuff, you're taught to do that. And then they're taught to see the rejection as a sign as well. So it's very interesting that the way they do this, but what they've done with this is just taken that to another level of invasiveness.
Mhm. To a level that actually gets into some very complicated legal territory, as this last guy pointed out.
Good point.
Yeah, because he comes back, for those listening, this is a guy who comes back to this conversation almost a year later saying, oh, a ward in a neighboring stake is using Truthfinder, another one of the data brokers. Our stake was going to buy a membership for clerks to use, but the clerk wanted to make sure that Salt Lake City and the company were okay with it. Nice, they actually thought to check with the company. And the clerk came back with saying that the church is okay with the stake using it. So there is alleged confirmation of Salt Lake City giving the green light to a stake to use these people finders and buying an account.
Wow.
But then Truth Finders said they're not okay with it and that their licensing is strictly for personal use and it can't be used by any organization for any reason. However, he says this other ward is using it illegally. So that's the start. And this goes on to the next page here too on this conversation. So they're admitting that the church using it for these purposes is illegal based on the licenses that they're buying. And
wow, that's a big slide right there. You're right. Two things. They admitted that they checked with the church and Salt Lake said, yeah, go ahead and do that. But then the data finder company itself said, no, that is not what this is for. And if you use it for that, you are doing something illegal.
Like weird they even thought to ask about it.
Yeah, some of those clerks, you know what, they check their boxes, they go through things, but wow.
Yeah. Well, and that's where later on this page, I mean, you get this guy who later says like there's no excuse. Okay, so he points out here that one of these people's that guilt I referred to earlier, that a lot of people think it's better to do all this work than to send things back to Salt Lake because there's some shame or that's not a good use of church resources. Well, I like this guy in the last post who says, I keep seeing this belief over and over again that it's better to use these services than sending things to Salt Lake. But I don't think it's accurate, and it's certainly not an excuse to violate the terms of service. So he's taking a stand. He's saying, no, this isn't good. Like this shouldn't be what we do. But he's in the minority here. Most of the posts that I see on it are either ambivalent or saying, yes, go for it.
Yeah, he's pretty emphatic here. He says, yes, there are a number of things the ward should be doing, making use of ward council, asking known friends and family, like we mentioned before, but there's nothing that calls for units using budget funds or for any kind of subscription service. If that was the church's desire, they would have negotiated a bulk service contract and made a way for units to use it. They would never do that. It's the don't ask, don't tell. Oh, I think the wards are doing it. I think it's fine. We never told them to do it. We just told them to find everyone. Then I look up here at this top line. This is like my family member. I'm sure there's a good subscription service out there. The church is already using it for the service missionaries who are working on the address unknown file. Like this is extremely revealing.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if they realize this is all visible from the internet. Like you don't have to log in to see that. Yeah, right. You don't have to log in. You just search it and you find all of this. But they're very open.
Yeah. No, we're just like so fascinated reading every single word here. I know it's like we have these pauses because we're like, oh my gosh. Yeah, I suggest everybody freeze on these screens as we go through and read them. For those of us that'll be listening, you might on this particular episode want to go over to Mormonish Podcast on video and check it out because we're reading bits and pieces, but you can just see these clerks working it out. And some of them are hardcore. This is the mission. We're the shepherd. And others are like, I don't know, guys. But it is very telling to see them. And also as they discuss their interaction with Salt Lake and what, may be known, may be okayed. Yeah, this is fascinating.
Yeah, well, it seems to me that the whole process, what this guy says here is absolutely correct. The church and other major corporations, they have these contracts that they enter into where they make software available to all the wards. They do it with Word, Excel, all that kind of stuff, right? I work for a university, so every program I use at the university comes with a login for me. So if I want to use Adobe, I have an Adobe, so I have that. The other thing I think that this clerk is on, I think this guy probably ends up PMO at some point. I don't know how you can think this rationally and not end up there, right?
He might be in our audience now.
If you're here, dude who was on the forum in 2019,
twice.
Twice. So what he's saying here is correct. This guy views religion properly. Hey, it's ward council, it's asking friends and family, and if they're gone, they're gone. We just give it over and we focus on the people that we have. Okay, that to me is a rational and good way for a religious community to operate. All right, whether or not we like to gossip at ward council, that's the way religion's been for thousands of years. Okay, but if the church wanted this, they would have it. This wink and a nod thing they're doing gives them plausible deniability. It's the same thing where they have the historians at BYU talk about real history while they have the people in Salt Lake dealing with hagiography. Right? That way they can keep distance between them and the church protects its assets. If somebody gets caught using one of these subscription services, just go, well, we didn't really know that was happening. Right. Oh, well, we were told but you were told by a low-level person at Salt Lake. It didn't come from anybody in a position of authority. And they will take these poor guys, throw them under the bus, and they'll get in trouble for it. But the church walk away scot-free.
Yeah.
And clerks warn each other about that on here. With the Google Doc stuff we were talking about earlier, one of them kept saying, oh, well, this is against church policy. You could be sued and the church will have to distance itself from you because technically you're not in compliance with the policy. No institutional defense, none of that. They're just going to, throw them under the bus.
Wow.
So very charitable and very Christ-like.
Wow. And some people recognize that and try to warn others. Because a lot of people don't realize the liability as a member and the things that you're asked to do. It's huge in many cases, and they will distance themselves instantly if it's going to blow back on them.
100%. And I guess for listeners, like this is from 2017, but we will get to the more recent ones. There's ones from this year that come up. We're just kind of moving through the moving through the time period. This one I brought in because I just feel so bad for this guy in a lot of ways. He's a new clerk. He's only been in for 6 or 7 months, and he wants to know more about finding people. And he reads over the 8-step process. He says 8 here, others say 9. I'm not sure if it's 8 or 9, but here he says that the steps he's supposed to take to find people are contact the occupants at the member's last known address and ask them if they have a forwarding address. Use postal services to find a forwarding address, which we talked about earlier. Call any last known telephone numbers. Send an email to any last known email addresses. Contact known family members and relatives. Contact known friends, church members, and full-time missionaries. Contact ward priesthood and auxiliary leaders. And then the vague one, check available online social networks. No clarification on what that means, but that seems to give a pretty big umbrella for a lot of what these wards are doing. And this poor guy, he does not want to cold call people. He's talking about how he used one of the data brokers, wasn't finding a bunch. And so he says, I feel uncomfortable when calling numbers on file to ask people for their new address. So he's got a sliver of humanity in him there. He understands that this is breaking boundaries and being really creepy. And he says they don't feel comfortable giving the new address. Of course. So he's asking the other people on the forum, what do I need to do to not feel so awkward and to feel comfortable to make them give me their address? And what are good lines that you use for this? Good lines.
This is just like a telemarketing person calling in, to exploit an elderly person, and you're trying to build a relationship and get that data and can coerce somebody to give something up. This is very underhanded.
Extremely. And this poor guy, like I feel for him because he really doesn't want to do it, which is great. But at the same time, part of why I threw his story in is what people responded to him with. Specific, not this guy, but the next guy was really crazy. This guy, though, also talks about how, in response to the first guy, says, I do this too, contact the parents. Often the parents want their new ward to know where they are. I will occasionally contact the ward clerk of the parents' ward to help get info from the parents. They don't like to give it to strangers, and another clerk can verify my calling in LCR. It's harder to get this line blew me when I first read it. It's hard to contact less actives and get info because they don't know you. Helping people move in or out is the perfect time to get info if they are less active. Train your ward leaders to ask for the right info because they're more likely to give it out in person, over the phone, or by text. Train them. Train them.
While you're moving the couch, right?
Mm-hmm. That's why you're there. You're not actually there to give service. You need their information.
No, I remember moving into a new house, and I later came to know that this guy was the executive secretary, but he came up to the door and he goes, "Hey, I just live right over there. Are you guys LDS?" And I just very flippantly said, "No, we're Jewish." And he actually like wrote something. I go, "No, I'm totally kidding. We are LDS, but now that I look at it, he was trained to go over. He saw a moving truck and he's asking right away the first question, "Are you LDS?" And yeah, I kind of blew his mind because I was trying to be funny, and it was just so awkward. I don't know why that came out of my mouth, but
why did he write it in front of you? Like,
yeah,
that's
I know,
such
isn't that weird?
OPSEC.
Yeah, I think that's strange. And looking back, yeah. But we're used to a lot of weird things and a lot of invasiveness as members of the church that other people would go, "What do you mean you talk to the plumber next door and tell him this?" Or "What do you mean you gave access to this private part of your life?" Yeah, there's a lot of things that we don't realize until you are on the other side of it. You're like, wow, that's invasive, and normal people don't do that.
Here's another case of them telling them to go to the county recorder's database. Is find their address and go to the county and search the government records. This is
Oh yeah, look, that's what it says here. Go to the county.
unbelievable.
These poor guys. I feel really sorry for them though. What a thankless job. There are so many, if when you look at the membership records in your ward, that you're having to do this for. Good.
And then at the end there, they talk about the return service thing where you send the letter to the old address so you can get the forwarding address by specifically writing on the envelope return service requested. Because, why wouldn't they hunt you down even after you moved? But yeah, this is another example of that county database. And this is so horribly creepy because county databases really do have all that information. You can look up most counties, well, not all of them, a lot of them will let you look by name. So you can search by someone's name and find out where they live. It's really creepy. Some of them, like California, you have to buy some of the info. I use county records to find church commercial properties like this one here I found in California. So you can see just from the basics that I have, I know that's a property reserve slash ag reserve PO box, so we know who that belongs to. But you can see how much the property is worth when it was sold, and this is pretty sparse when it comes to county data. This one, I think this is was this Georgia here? No, I don't remember where this one was, but this is another church property that I found. Like, I can go in and find all these, and I can go into each of these little parcels and click on it and find out who owns it. I can see the deed if they've stored it. Sometimes the counties will sell them. You have to pay for it. But in a lot of them, you can just click it. And if you know your way around these county databases, it's not that hard to find stuff. I can find where a lot of people, no, I don't do this. Let's be very clear. Someone with the right training could go and find where almost anyone lives. And even if you don't know their address to start with, if you go to one of these people, data brokers, even the free ones, get the basic idea of where they are, then you can go into the Davis County or the Salt Lake City assessor's office or the property records. You kind of want to use each one when you're doing like property research, like I've been doing here, and you can just search them by name or by what the data broker thinks their address is, and you can confirm it. It's really creepy. I don't like that it's out there in general, and I really don't like that the church is telling people to do that because there's all your private data.
Training them to be super sleuths, which who knows what they can use later,
Exactly. You're talking about tax returns at tithing settlement. Like they know how much your house is worth.
This is going to be one of those cases where if you were to press a member on it, right? They're going to go, well, the information is already there. They're just using it, right? But this is a case of, but should you?
Exactly.
Right? It's who would Jesus data mine? I'm trying to come up with catchphrases.
That was
but it's that's the case. Yes, these tools are there. Yes, people would view this as invasive. Should the church be doing this? My response is no. Yeah. But I have a cousin who was called as a bishop at like 23, and his response is going to be, "Isn't it great that they have these tools so we can, move the Lord's work?" This is just stunning to me.
Yeah,
and it's helpful in some ways because that's the insider view. But when you get like a reporter or the outside world looking in, they can see this exactly for what it is. Just data mining to get people's info to bring them back in. Mm-hmm. It's so obvious, and examples like these posts are just so helpful. And this is one of the jerks I was talking about. So he's responding to that first guy who was feeling really nervous about making the calls. And he's funny in some ways, but in others, he's just an absolute jerk. But he's talking about how like, oh, well, yeah, this is one of the toughest parts of being a clerk. And you can go work through the ward, but the Relief Society will get some things done, but the priesthood will be packing you nearly the entire list of names, having done nothing, but the women's auxiliaries will have gotten about 3/4 of theirs. So, I mean, that's kind of funny how that comes up. But such is life. You still need to encourage priesthood responsibility. And then he talks about how he thinks missionaries are usually wasted effort when he sends them after these people. And then I'll go over some of the tips he gives here in a moment. But the part that just made me laugh is, as personal advice to that first clerk, he says, "This is not a job for the timid. Remember the scripture about making weak things strong. You are curing timid in the process of doing your calling."
Timid? No, it's called respecting people's boundaries. This is such a classic example of not understanding that boundaries even exist in this, right? There are no boundaries when it comes to finding the lost sheep. Yeah. Timid?
Exactly.
No, the first clerk understands boundaries on some level and is like, I feel awkward about this. I feel weird. This guy says boundaries? What boundaries? None of it matters. Stop it. Don't be a wuss.
Let Jesus make you strong.
That's right.
Well, and then he goes into the different tools he uses. And he goes through like a list. Like he talks about the ward council meeting, getting everyone together, pick an evening, go through the list. Usually you'll get, what he said here, usually you'll get 20 to 30 names found and move through this process. Since it's probably a 3-hour operation, a snack break in the middle is handy. At least there's some practical advice here. And then before that meeting, he suggests that the clerk have a list of people no one knows, but who are local that you still need information for, found on Facebook. Having pictures sometimes jars people's memories.
Yeah.
So go to Facebook.
Yeah, so you go to Facebook and pull pictures of people.
Yeah,
and put them up on a whiteboard, like in the clerk's office, and lines drawn from it. Really, is this what we're doing?
Sounds like it.
I really want to take that Charlie Day meme from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia and
yeah. Where he's like, that actually would be a really funny meme. We heard that they moved 3 blocks over. We understand that he's living with his parents. Seriously, let's make that meme. That's exactly it. With that kind of frantic energy, right? As you're trying to find people.
And then he says here, another tool that worked is to go to Facebook, find their birthday, and stop into their house and say happy birthday. Okay. I live in the middle of the county. All right. You're not coming out to where I live unless you're searching for me. And if you show up at my house and say happy birthday, you're going to, oh my.
I have a funny story about that. Somebody didn't show up, but they sent me a text. I think my phone number is still on file somewhere. And it was 2 years ago. Yeah, it was my birthday. And some random person said, hi, I'm from the ward, the Relief Society presidency. Have a very happy birthday. We'd love to bring something over to you. And I was just being silly. They're like, what would you like? And I wrote cheese curds. And guess what showed up on my porch? I wish I would have known they really were going to do it. I would have put caramel apples, which I love. But yeah, I mean, they're there to send a text to maybe we should answer these texts. You're going to get free stuff if they bring it over to your porch. But again, kind of scary.
And at the base of this, right, he goes off. He says, hey, keep trying. This will teach you patience because everything is an Abrahamic test. But then at the bottom, he says, if you ship the records off to Salt Lake, expect them back in 2 to 4 months.
Wow. So no passing the buck.
There's
send them
no
right back to you.
They're going to keep sending them back to you, and they're going to keep just burning out these ward clerks trying to find people.
They're just dumping it all on them in the name of priesthood responsibility.
Are there any success stories? Has anyone ever found anyone?
Yes. They will. I think in some of these they talk about how they find people with them. I mean, here he at least brings up, like at the end when he's talking about his people search databases, that a 3-month subscription cost the ward, not him, but the ward, something like $65, and we got about 20 people either directly moved by it or got more information that let us find addresses. Let them find it. How, you might ask? Well, that's what I'd like to know from them too. And then briefly pointing out that he does say that you should take advantage of every fundraiser or ward Christmas program, and let the ward know that the bishop wants notices to all the ward to learn what addresses are bad. And he says, you are spending that money, so get as much bang for the buck as you can get out of it. Because that's what church activities are actually for him, is getting that info, not, celebrating Christmas or something. So just crazy. All right. So that's when we move up to 2022, 2023-ish. And this post here talks about a broadcast by the Utah area, specifically by the Membership and Statistical Records Division, talking about a new report titled Finding Lost Members, that it's not visible to member tools, but it's available to leaders. It lists the names of members who are assigned to the ward, but their current location is not known. Excuse me. Let's see. He kind of goes over the dynamics of how that works. In addition, records of new members who were baptized within the last 10 years and then moved to the address unknown file at church headquarters have been returned to the last known ward and added to the Finding Lost Members report. So once again, kicking back these records to the ward.
I just want to point out, look at the 800-pound CRT they have on the desk of this ward. Okay? We're talking about an institution that owns millions and millions of acres and has $250 billion in resources, and they're using a CRT from 1992. Like, I hate to get off, but that's the first thing I see here.
Because that's in the ward house. Yeah. They don't have those in Salt Lake. I'm sure they have the cutting edge, but the members, the tools that they work with, no. They're dinosaurs. There's nothing updated. They're doing the best they can. Yeah, with no funding.
You print the LCR off on the dot matrix printer. The quickest way to get it done.
No, you're good. And who knows what computers they're giving out to others. I put something up earlier this week about how they announced that they gave a bunch of computers to the Ghanaian Immigration Agency. Yes. Yeah, so, and who knows? Yeah, so
it was the members. The members are sloppy seconds, the very last to be considered.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So with this link here, it works, and there's no login required. So I went to it, watched the video. It's about 15 minutes, very boring. And I took some screenshots. And this touches in a little bit of what you guys were bringing up. So they ran this as a pilot program first. And I think Nemo might have done a video on all this. I think I saw something like that when I was putting the slides up. So if I'm stepping on his toes, apologize to across the pond.
Don't step on toes. We build on each other.
True. Yes.
That's right. Further light and knowledge. That's it.
There we go. So they talk about this pilot program and some of the findings they had. And they mentioned that Elders Quorum and Relief Society presidencies working together had greater success than other finding models. For example, clerks doing the finding. Yeah, the clerks really don't want to be doing the finding, but they're being stuck in that role. Involvement from friends, previous leaders, or longtime members of the unit increased the probability of finding. And I love this line. While many found expressed a desire not to be contacted, many also reestablished relationships with the church and its members. Not necessarily rejoined, but established relationships. Whatever the hell that means.
Just they're contacting people that have expressed desire not to be contacted.
Yeah. And they're surprised some of them said they still don't want to be contacted. Like this, yeah, this slide just kind of drives me nuts. And then, oh yes, they should approach the effort prayerfully rather than merely as a task, because that leads to better finding. Yeah, whatever. And then they talk about this finding lost members report in the dashboard that's available. And I guess since folks will be listening, I'll here. You guys have better reading voices. One of you want to read that?
I can read the first one. Finding Lost Member Dashboard. Says Area 70s will be able to monitor progress of the Finding Lost Members effort through an online dashboard, which will show them their coordinating councils and the associated stakes and wards or branches. The dashboard includes information about the number of individual records moved by church headquarters to the local units, the number of individuals found through research and moved to the correct unit by the clerk, including back into the researching unit's regular membership list, and the number of individuals researched and moved back to the church headquarters address unknown unit. So those are the different things that can happen, right, to a record. You can go back to your ward, we found them. It can go to its actual ward, we found them in their new location, or we don't know where the hell they are, send it back to Salt Lake.
And they confirm that is a unit. Address unknown, it's this own specific unit.
Yeah.
And they're doing research and the wards are doing research. So it's not even just about finding them, it's research. And then here's what they tell people they should do, some of the steps they should take. Seek to communicate with the member using phone, email, social media channels, or other resources available in your area or community. Once again, very broad, very opaque as to what it means. Contact known family or friends of the member, because who doesn't like their friend getting a call from headquarters or from the ward saying, hey, where's your buddy at? Contact the occupant of the member's last known address. Obtain the bishop's approval to return records to church headquarters. They really don't want them going back to headquarters.
Yeah.
So there was a post the other day. I actually think it was your post where it gave a picture of the record and it said it had a thing like known friends.
Yeah, I did a short on that.
Yeah. So that's what they mean for by friends, right? So it's contact. Who do they talk to? Who are they friends with? Who might know where they are, right? And so because they know, like let's say you're somebody who doesn't want to be contacted, the odds of a priesthood leader being rebuffed by a ward member, say, hey, do you happen to know the address for brother so and so? A priesthood leader or somebody in a calling is going to come and say, hey, I've been called to do this. They are more likely to get that information, right? Because we're conditioned not to say no when somebody has something in their calling, okay? So they can lean on the idea of priesthood authority to get information about people in the church by approaching friends or, whatnot. So, and even if it's somebody in another ward, call them up and say, hey, this is stake president so-and-so, I'm trying to get information for this, or, so this is a method in which the way we are conditioned to respond to people's authority and callings can be used to abuse people.
Yeah. And what was interesting about that? So it was just a little record of a missing person. And it said, the first one said 2 known friends identified. And the next record said 5 known friends in the stake identified. So how do they identify these friends through which they're going to attempt to contact you, right? Are they looking on Facebook to see who you're hanging out with? Are they driving past your house to see who you're talking to in your yard? I mean, it's so interesting because it's not just the missing person's information. Now it's anybody they talk to is fair game to be used in this effort to get at that person. Again, boundaries. There is no such thing.
They say you never know in the church. They always say, oh, you don't know your true eternal value. Well, we kind of do now. We know that it can be monetized in terms of time and effort. Like the fact that they're putting all this effort in, like it's not just to find you, obviously. They need your tithing. But just crazy the amount of effort they will find to keep someone from just walking away. This was from the PDF file that was accompanied the video. Let's see, was there anything here that we didn't already go about?
No,
Oh yeah,
it
records
just,
of new. Oh yeah, go ahead.
oh, it just says these influence, these efforts, last known phone numbers, email, and social media channels. So you should be aware that not that everybody is watching your social media. The church is
Everyone.
going to track you.
Hmm. Or friends that you have who might be your friend on Facebook, even if you're not friends with a church investigator.
That's right.
An investigator in the hunting people down, not in the
Yeah. Well,
now
for all
called
you know,
friends
their
category.
bishop went to your friend and said, hey, just, give me Jim's address. Can you get that for me? It's, in his best interest. The other thing we touched on a little bit is honestly, parents and other family members. I think they are the number one culprit in sharing the information. Oh, my daughter and son-in-law left the church. They just moved to Fresno. Here's their address. Can someone please bring them back? This happens all the time. Again, well-meaning on every side, but I would think parents and family members are some of the major culprits in just sharing that personal information.
100%. And it makes me wonder if the Church Central has like sock puppet accounts they're using to try to friend people on these places. I have no idea, so I can't.
Guarantee they do.
Like a catfish. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Well,
something to be.
think about the missionary effort right now.
Yeah.
The missionary effort is exactly that.
Yep.
So anyway.
Yeah.
No, they never say the name of the church up front, and it's usually a very, very cute girl saying, are you lonely? Would you like to sit by me at church? I mean, that is kind of catfishing for Jesus. Actually, I watched a documentary a long time ago about a cult. I can't remember which one, but they would send their, young women cute out, and they called it flirty fishing. And they were assigned to do flirty fishing certain hours every day. And that means to talk to men and, invite them. Same kind of thing, flirty fishing. That's it for Jesus, right? Bring the souls.
There's a letter somewhere that talks about how attractive sister missionaries should be put on Temple Square.
Oh yeah. Oh, we know that. Yeah. It's model level. I've seen some leaked letters where you usually have professional modeling experience if you are called to Temple Square, and it's only sisters there. That's it. No elders anymore. So, and there are certain missions like that. Like I know Moscow, Russia is one where very attractive people are called because they can't I mean, when they used to be able to go there, they couldn't proselyte. Their job was just kind of to walk around and get people to engage in conversation. They would attend the ballet or the opera and just walk around. So yeah, they definitely capitalize on appeal in whatever way that is. So they're no dummies. Let's just say that. They're working it, and I think it's just kind of off the charts at this point. I don't think we've ever seen social media like we've seen now, and not just the LDS church, all kinds of other churches. The Pope just had a big influencer gathering where he had thousands, I think it was at least 1,000 of social influencers in the Catholic Church, and said, here, film with me, post this, put your own spin on it, and they actually are saying that people are joining organized religion because of huge pushes in social media. So it's that, and it's then finding people to bring back after they join and realize, oh my God, what did I do? Then they can still use the same social media to try to bring them back.
Exactly. And even a friend of mine just a few years ago, their mission had them friend on Facebook random people who they could tell lived in the area. They didn't have to know them. And once they friended them, they would comment on all of their posts, and that would start the conversation to get them in until the person inevitably blocked them.
Even to this day, every time there's a new missionary in the ward here or in the stake, I get added as a friend, or they'll come through. I never add them. But yeah, that's still the practice, because about every 6 weeks or so, I get a new one.
Jeez.
Remember when they weren't allowed to use technology? They weren't allowed to be on their phone. They weren't allowed to do any of this. And then suddenly, like 5 years ago, what apostle was it? He goes, we don't know why those missionaries weren't using technology and the tools, but now they're learning how. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know why? You flat out forbade it. But now it's all social media, right? I mean, you can't show up, being Amish. You have to know. You have to have an Instagram account, Facebook account. You have to know how to make TikToks. You have to make Reels, Instagram. You have to be an influencer in order to be a missionary.
100%. Then with these ones here, these are from 2022 and 2025. The one from 2022 is just another clerk confirming that church service missionaries continue to attempt to locate those members, also referring to lost members. And then interesting stuff from 2025, because like I mentioned before, this is still ongoing. They're still posting about this until now. So this guy says, just tried to find a member using a people search site, but the Finding Lost Members report now is listing only the state for their address, not the full address listed in the directory. That makes it impossible to tell if the address found in the search is a different address. I hope this is a bug and not a new feature. Uh-oh, they restricted some information. That's not good. When do you guys want to take the next one? Because you have
Go
good
ahead,
reading
Jim.
voices.
Let's see here. So Finding Lost Members report FLM typically shows birth date, and you may be able to use it to confirm which address is the correct one on the people search site. So they give a little bit of information, but you have to take what's in the Finding Lost Members report and plug it into a people search site now. Also, some of these sites show possible relatives of the person you search for. The ward clerk can see other family members' names, and those may be used to determine if you have found the correct individual. So you can take your church record, it shows family names, kids, and whatnot. They're telling you to cross-reference what's on that Finding Lost Members site with what's on the data mining sites. Also, try checking more than one people search site to see if they both agree on the same address. So now this guy's telling you to correlate them. Okay. If they're different, let it sit for a few months and check back later, see if they've been updated. And if you know their last known address or phone number, some sites list prior addresses and phone numbers. Those two can be used to determine. So what this guy is saying is the Finding Lost Members report is not giving all the information. So you take the limited information that the church gives you, and then you go to these data mining sites and you correlate it that way. That's wild.
Just insane. And that's from April 2025. That's just a few months ago they're talking about this.
This is super current. This is what they're doing. Wow.
This is still ongoing. This is still, I don't know if policy is the right word, but this is still happening. Oh, gross. I put this one with a lot of text. But it just keeps going. These ones I think are from 2024, but they're just going on and on about how, sorry, all these share buttons are in the way here. They're talking about just how these people are trying their best. Like this guy here says, there's a reason our Finding Lost Members list now is 54 names on it and is turning into a monster. And it's not because the ward council isn't spending a lot of time doing church work. It's because they have jobs and families, spend a lot of time addressing immediate needs. And this is something that just constantly gets put on the back burner. No duh.
Yeah, no duh. I'm glad he's saying it. Yeah, I'm glad he's saying it out loud.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I like this next one. So he's saying, I appreciate the desire to make an effort to resolve those members who are on records as lost. Each bishop with different priorities, but I personally don't see how having a large FLM list is a problem. Yes, every name represents an individual who made baptismal covenants and deserves to be remembered and ministered to, but every unit has limited resources, except my YSA ward where they invented callings, but that's another story. So basically saying, yeah, we have these lists, but we have to think about this rationally, right? This guy's thinking right. So,
yeah, these two are some of the only ones who were doing that. Like, it would be comforting to see every once in a bit you'd get some of these guys who were more rational about it. Also, that's the only guy I've seen put an emoji in the forum, so I respect him for that.
The only one with a sense of humor. Look down here at the bottom, though. Facebook stalking is, a method. Look for who are in their friends in the ward and use those people. This is what we talked about, that they are going to use you if you happen to be friends with someone who's stepped away. Wow.
And then after, when he talks about an example, he says, one younger lady I know, she married this fall, what town she lives in, but she wants no contact with the church. And when friends ask, she simply doesn't share her address.
Yeah, and I bet she doesn't really think of them as friends because they know where she stands. And if they come to her, she knows that they are, they're at the bishop's behest, right? What kind of a friend goes, so where do you live? Where do you live now? It's so transparent. I mean, if you know what to look for, it's so calculated.
Like, it's obvious to folks on the outside. Like, it's not hard to see. Yes. And that's from December 2024. Now, I blocked out the name, so I can't remember. This might be similar to the guy who said something similar a few posts ago. But if he is, it's still the same guy doing the same job, still telling people to pay for subscription services out of the war budget. Like, this is institutionalized knowledge at this point. Let's see. Did I have what was? Oh, that was the last one there.
That was it.
So
You
that
were
was
finished.
it.
That was
Yeah.
amazing. All right, you can
Thank
stop
you.
sharing. That was a lot. And yeah, you can go ahead. There you go. And as I said, I think you guys are going to want to like freeze your screen on some of these and just read through them. I mean, we touched on some of the main points, but it just paints this picture, doesn't it, Jim, of just what they really are about and what they're really trying to do. And it should be really disturbing to all of us.
Well, I think that the thing that strikes me most about this, right, is the irresponsibility of it. Okay, first, do these resources exist? Yes. Is it ethical for a religious institution? Unless, like, at no point in time, granted, most of us are in the church because we were born into the church. We weren't given a choice for whether or not we were going to join this organization. But at no point in time were we ever told, look, if you leave, we're going to find your personal information and keep following you for the rest of your life. Okay. That is not something that gives you warm fuzzies about a religious institution. Or, hey, we're going to take a random person who you do not know. We are going to task them with finding this personal information about you so that we can come find you again. Like, that's not the role of a religious institution. A religious institution is, if you need us, we are here. We will pray for you. We will think for you. If you contact us for aid, we're going to bring you soup. Some of the best Christians I know live a few blocks from me. I don't have any conversations with them about religion, but I know that if I needed them for something, they would be right here. Okay? It's not the role of a religious institution to track you down, to find your personal information, to look for your family members, to identify your friends, and to send people to come find you. That's not what a church is, in my opinion, a church is supposed to do. And I really don't think that Christ, who seemed to have a problem with institutions and authority, especially the Romans, would be like, hey, this is a great idea. I give you the blessings to dig through all this stuff. So for me, I knew these tools existed. I had never considered how they were being used by my former religious institution to keep dibs on me, my wife, and my kids. That's very disturbing for me. And the fact that there's random people who now are given the authority by the church to go digging through my information is even worse.
Yep. Any final thoughts, Suspicious Mite, on your whole journey of finding all this? We're so glad that you brought it here because I think now we're going to have a wider audience just being made aware. And you know what? I feel sorry for these clerks. I really do. They're put in this position because you have to magnify your calling, but what a thankless calling. I feel really sorry for them, even the ones that were being kind of jerks. It's like, they're conditioned and they think that's what they have to do. And there are just no boundaries. They really do not understand what they're doing is just so inappropriate. So any final thoughts from you on just your journey and everything that you discovered here? You did such a good job. I mean, what you put together was incredible. I even texted Landon, like I said, he couldn't be on. He's on a big old work call. I said, this is a fantastic guest. You are missing out. I'm sure that didn't help him. He's probably more angry than ever. But I just had to let him know, and again, like I said to everybody, I just saw a random post that was interesting and I reached out to a random person. This happens all the time. You guys out there are just fantastic. I'm not kidding. I have never been disappointed when I've had somebody on, just so, and you are right there at the top. This has been amazing. So yeah, just see us out by just telling us a little bit about, just what this has meant to you. This whole thing, putting it all together. Mm-hmm. It's just been amazing.
No, thank you. Well, and thank you for the ability to share it too. And hopefully it helps some people better understand what they're getting into or what they're getting out of. Because can you really get out of it when you have them hunting you down with all these tools? I think for me, just doing this research and finding what I have and finding things that are publicly accessible, that none of this is hidden per se. So who knows what's going on behind closed doors? If this is what we're seeing on the tip of the iceberg, I can only imagine what that address unknown unit is up to, or what, who knows what they're doing and what services they bought into, what software they're using. There's just so much going on that members don't No, and that's not okay. You can believe in the doctrine, fine, but you should have a problem with your institution using your tithing money for surveillance. That's not that's just not okay. And that's something that I think people in and out of the church should be able to agree on, that this is not an ethical practice. And the evidence is there. It's not hidden. I mean, a lot of it is, but you can see that this is happening. And I just hope people can notice that.
Well, and yeah, it goes back to imagine what would happen if the church says, "Do you consent to us accessing personal, subscription data mining sites to find your information after you leave?" Because that's what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah. Folks should just take as much privacy steps as they can, but also your data's out there. There's not really a whole lot we can do on that count. But like you said earlier, they can, but they arguably should not be using that data to find you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Dude, this has been amazing.
It has been
my
amazing.
Absolute pleasure.
Yeah. And the other thing I think about just at the end is your children's data, honestly, because I see so many posts, I'm sure you guys do too, where people are contacting kids, well-meaning, but again, a stranger talking to a kid who answers the door. I see posts like that, why are you talking to my child? Why are you giving them a treat? I did not consent. So if anything, let's help everybody understand what boundaries are. Let's help them understand when you have overstepped. If you can do that in a kind way, because people think, like you said, they think they're on a mission. They think they're doing Jesus's work, and they think that they're going to be that creepy Jesus in the background running after that. That picture is weird. If you guys haven't seen that, it took me a long time to figure out what is this supposed to be, but that's the whole idea. Yeah, we are going to hunt you down. We are going to tackle you, and we are going to drag you kicking and screaming back for your own good. And that's it. So yeah, this has been incredible. Thank you so much. And please, everybody, comment and let us know, were you even aware of this kind of tip of the iceberg data mining and scrutiny of people? Have you been a victim or experienced this kind of thing? Maybe as somebody that has stepped away, or have your children experienced this kind of thing? I'd really be very curious in the comments to know how pervasive this is. Please like and subscribe to Mormonish Podcast. And if you'd like to be made aware of when new episodes come out, you can hit that notification bell. If you would like to make a donation to the podcast, we always have links to donor box in our show notes, and we absolutely appreciate every single one of you that do that. It keeps us going and allows us to bring you incredible content like this. This has been mind-blowing. And I'd like to say thanks again to Unoriginal Jim for helping co-host another time. He's the man. He's like Johnny on the spot. I'm not kidding. Like, I can text him like an hour and say, hey, you have some free time? Landon had to end up on this work call. And he's like, I'm there. Do you have a real job, Jim? I just have to. No. You're just sitting there waiting to podcast.
I'm a state employee, so yeah.
Okay, say no more. You're a state employee. That's right. And we hope that Suspicious Might, that you will continue digging into things, because I think you have a real talent for that. I think you're able to find things. You're able to put together information in a really succinct, understandable way, kind of dumb it down for the rest of us. And so I hope to see posts from you in the future. And I hope that you'll bring more stuff on Mormonish. We would love to have you back if there's any other topic that you're interested in or have been able to research. So I hope you'll consider that.
Always down for it. Always happy to share. And once again, thank you so much.
Oh, awesome. No, this is just fantastic. So thanks, everybody. We will say goodbye for now from Mormonish, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Suspicious. Thanks everybody. Bye-bye. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Mormonish. We really appreciate our listeners and would love to hear from you if you have a story you'd like to share. You can email us at mormonishpodcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and on our website, mormonishpodcast.org. And don't forget to look for us on YouTube and like and subscribe. Keep joyful, everybody.